Welcome to part 4 of a series of tutorials on how to use the ML64 SDK to make mods. Today we're going to be covering how to manipulate memory directly and how to use various other basic API features of ModLoader. So we're going to go ahead and open our VS Code project from last time. And we're going to get rid of our fish example from the last tutorial because we don't need that anymore. Now, this .modloader is where you're going to get the majority of your API features from. There are a lot of things in here, so we're going to just cover a few basic ones. The one that you will likely use the most while making a mod is emulator. Within emulator, there are many functions that are used to manipulate memory. We can read memory, we can write memory in any and all sizes down from bits to megabytes. So what we're going to do is we're going to read some memory. So I'm going to pick read 32, and we're going to read something. So let's go get we're going to go to the Cloud Modding Wiki, and we're going to find a memory address that we want to read. So within here, we're also going to get a calculator because these are written in offsets. Change it to programmer mode. 11A5DO is the start of the save context within Ocarina of Time 1.0 for NTSC. That's what we're going to work with. Now we're going to find something in this list that we want to read. Let's read, for our example, we'll go ahead and read link's entrance address because it's right at the beginning, so we don't actually have to add anything in the calculator. So now we're just going to put in this address. We're actually going to write it to the console, convert it to a string. Alright, so this is going to manually read that piece of memory and write it to the console so that we can see what its value is. As you can see, it says that our value is currently 205, now it's 0, now 187, and if I exit the door, it should change again. That value is simply Link's entrance value, so it is the last door he traversed that takes him to another scene. So every time I go through a door in the game, it's going to change that value. You can use this value to track, where Link is, where he's been, etc. It's just a very basic example of reading memory. One of the other interesting things with reading memory is that we can read large quantities of memory at a time if we want. So if I did rd ram read buffer, and now I'm going to tell it to read 16 bytes. This is how you read more than 4 bytes of data in a single operation. Oh, interesting. The new console doesn't exactly print that right, huh? Good mistake in the tutorial. Okay, let's try that one more time. We're just going to change that to a console.log because I know it prints it correctly. Take the toString off. There, that's more like what I expected. So there's our 16 bytes of memory that are going to fluctuate as we do things in the game. Again, it's just a very basic example of how to read memory. Now, at the same time, we can write memory. So let's do that. Let's write memory. Let's say this dot. Let's go ahead and actually, I'm going to Control Z my way back to when we had our fish example. If I can go back that far, here we go. I'm going to change this to this dot mod loader emulator. If I could spell it. We're going to write to that same address, 11A5DO. And we're going to write C to it, 0xC. Now, if I do that, we should have an interesting result. We've ended up in the Forest Temple boss room. This is because we've changed the entrance value to something else, which changed where the door went. This would change any door to lead to the same location. Keep in mind, this is equivalent to doing this .core.save.entranceindex equals 0xC. This will do the exact same thing. But it's doing it through the core instead of directly manipulating the memory. As you can see, did the exact same thing. So core usage is optional if you feel the need to manually manipulate memory, or you can also use the core for anything the core has documented. So now let's take a look at some other features within this .mod loader that might be interesting to look at. One of the ones that will get used in some capacity is the utils function, which has various things in it, like bit counters. It has a hash function for creating hashes of bytes. You can clone buffers, clear buffers, you can set intervals, you can decode compressed data with an ocarina of time. Other things that we'll get into later are things like the lobby manager, and all of these I'mGUI SDL things. We'll get into these in a later tutorial, as they are a bit more complicated. Another interesting feature in here is mod loaded. It's a function. It takes the name of a mod, so you could put in, is mod loaded OOTO, and this would return a Boolean if OOTO was loaded, if you wanted to make a mod that needed special functionality with other mods. So in the next tutorial, we're going to cover the basic usage of decorators, which will cover event handlers and other such decorators like the lifecycle decorators and reference decorators and that sort of thing.